about how you actually help big business to turn around from being the problem to the solution.
What is Ecocide?
Ecocide is the extensive damage, destruction to or loss of ecosystems. What I've done is I've given a legal definition to the word. The word itself has been around since actually the late 1960s. But what I've done is I've taken it into the United Nations back in 2010 and proposed that it becomes an international crime to criminalise mass damage and destruction.
You were saying earlier that it almost made it onto the international statute books back in 1996, but was scuppered by a small number of nations who had vested interests in preventing its successful passage. Can you tell us a bit about that? Who were these countries, what they had to gain, and why the other signatories apparently went along with it?
Well, the problem is that we only know so much from the records that we've now discovered in the United Nations basement. But what we do know from those records, and this is records of meetings, minutes that were taken, and also records from the UN rapporteurs who were involved at the time, is that in the drafting of the Rome Statute for a period of 11 years, there were 5 international crimes that were being drafted in there: genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, crimes of aggression, which is the run-up to war, and ecocide. I didn't know this when I proposed it into the United Nations, but we've now found documentation. And what we also discovered was that there was a meeting in 1996 for the then Working Group on Crimes Against the Environment, where it was announced by the head of the working group that ecocide was going to be removed. Now, no reasons were given, and actually a number of member states complained and flagged up that this should not be removed without any good reason or even debate, because many countries had gone on record as supporting it. But that didn't happen, and it was removed, and in fact that working group was closed down. And this is the problem, is that everything happens behind closed doors, and so there was no recourse. And we do know from the records that 4 countries had lobbied behind the scenes, and that was United States, United Kingdom, France and the Netherlands. And we know from the records and the opinion of the UN rapporteurs at the time that this was vested business interest and political interest, because it would have potentially adverse impact for industries such as genetic modification and nuclear weaponry, nuclear waste from nuclear energy, for the oil industry and for mining industry as well. So, which is indeed probably the case. But nevertheless, what we're seeing here is now we're bringing to light the whole background that was there that actually stopped something as momentous and as an international crime being put in place just purely because of lobbying from 4 member states. And what I'm doing this time is keeping this out in the public domain so that that never happens again.
So going forward, what are your objectives?
We have a shrinking window of opportunity, and we have a shrinking democratic space. So this is about moving fast. This is about getting this tabled this year, now. But I can't perform miracles. This is also about inviting others to come on board at all different levels. This isn't something that's to be kept behind closed doors at a political level. This is to be kept out in the public domain, and that means actually getting public engagement as well. So that's very important, because this is something about finding those who have strong moral radars in whatever sphere of life it is to help come on board, to really take this out and make it visible. Here's a legal route path that can solve a lot of our problems and move us forward into a very different trajectory to move forward, not just here and now, but for future generations. So, in a way, this is about, necessity of action here and now. and inviting others to engage in whatever way or capacity that's possible. I always look to the abolition of slavery and how that took many different actors and many different spheres and many different levels of life to help engage in it, to really bring that to an end. And I think we're dealing with something equally momentous here. So please help me make it happen.
So doing nothing is not an option.
Yes, exactly. That's right.
Thank you.
And for a leader to stand up and do this takes greatness within that person. And what I discovered was that, in fact, actually, if I was asking leaders to be great in this way, to really stand up and speak out here, well, how could I do that if I didn't examine what greatness was and challenge myself to dare to be great as well? So I set myself a challenge. In a way, well, in fact, I asked myself a question: what do I do once I get this Ecocide law out of the way? And the thought came back, dare to be great, and I thought, oh, that's a ridiculous thought. But I sort of outed myself when I was supposed to be giving a TED talk one time, and I ended up ditching the talk about Ecocide law, and I talked about daring to be great. And the upshot of it was 2 years later, just back in November there, this is the book. Now, it doesn't mean that you end up being great by Thursday. I haven't quite worked out how to do that. But it's a kind of, it's a deeper exploration of what are the patterns of harm within ourselves that hold us back from being able to speak out. And actually it's that thing of, it's like a child's thing, I dare you, a game of dares. I dare you to be great.